At Whitton Avenue Bible Church, we exist to glorify God by reaching up in worship of God, reaching in to equip the saints, and reaching out with the gospel of Jesus Christ. But how do these relate to each other? How are the particular points of our vision integrated? Let's start by reaching up in worship of God. We know that because of our sin that separates us from God, we cannot reach up to God until He first reaches down to us in the gospel. Because of what Christ has done for us in His death and resurrection, we, through trust in Him, can be reconciled with God, to be brought into a relationship in which we do reach up in worship, in love, in trust, and in obedience toward God. And it is this relationship in which God reaches down to us in the gospel and we reach up to God in communion with Him. This relationship becomes the centerpiece of our reaching in to our relationships with one another in the church. So that to the degree that we are moving toward this relationship with God, trusting in Him, believing the gospel, communing with Him and worshiping Him, that as we do that together, talking about our trust in the gospel, being in God's presence together, experiencing God, His love for us and our love for Him together, that our relationships move inward and become closer and deeper. And this group of people, these relationships make up the church, as the Bible calls the saved people of God. And this group of people, as we move together toward this communion with God in common belief in the gospel, as we share life together, that we start to experience and to reflect the very character of God, that His love, His mercy, His grace, His peace, His joy, His justice, all begin to characterize our relationships with one another. Now, the nurturing of this community has intense bearing on our reaching out with the gospel of Jesus Christ. That our lives, not only intentionally reaching in through fellowship around the gospel and communion with God, but reaching out to neighbors and coworkers and family and friends who aren't believers in Christ, that our aim as we share this news about Christ and the gospel with our unsaved friends and family, that our aim is not only for them to hear this news, but to see this news as we bring them into contact with the life of the community, the life of the church that God is creating as we are moving inward toward the gospel together, so that our unsaved friends and family members and coworkers and neighbors may not only hear about God's grace, but may see and experience what God's grace looks like in a community, in relationships that are being redeemed through Christ. And that as they see and experience the grace and forgiveness and love of God within the community, within the church of God, that they, when they believe in Christ, may also be brought into this community of fellowship around the gospel. All of this, our reaching up, our reaching in, and our reaching out, is that God might be on display and glorified in the world.